Good morning. Please take your seats and silence your cell phones. Please welcome the CEO of CGI U, Ragina Arrington.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Oh, it is so wonderful to see everyone here. As you heard, my name is Ragina Arrington. I am the CEO of CGI University, and it is the blessing of a lifetime to see you all here in the audience. I know we have had some interesting realities when it comes to travel. A tornado will do that to you, but we're very happy that you landed safely and that you came last night and that you're here to join us this morning. I have been a part of CGI University since 2012. I actually joined quite some time ago, left for a spell, but have had the opportunity to come back and lead this amazing program, and truly would say that this is the privilege of a lifetime to work with you all and be able to engage, of course, with the wonderful people we're about to have a town hall conversation with. And actually, without further ado, I would love to welcome to the stage President Clinton, Secretary Clinton, and Dr. Chelsea Clinton.
Good morning.
All righty. All right, before we get started, is there anything you all want to say to the crowd for the morning as we get ready to start and chat with the students?
We're just glad you're all here. And Regina's been keeping us updated about all of the travel and weather challenges. So thankfully, people are here safely.
Awesome. And I know you all are really raring to go in terms of asking the questions, so we're going to go ahead and ask our first question. Would love to hear from Zacharias.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here this morning. My name is Zacharias. I am from Vanderbilt University and from the United States. My question is, in a world that is growing more and more divided day by day, how do you see the role of students and younger generations in particular to generate unity amidst adversity? Thank you.
I love the direct question to the secretary.
Well, that is a great first question because I think it keys off of the conversation I had with Secretary Buttigieg last night. I really appreciated him ending his comments by talking about the moral authority that young people have. And from everything I know, both personally and what I see out in the world, your generation is so poised to exercise more influence about the decisions that we make for our future. You're not as divided. You are much more inclusive. You are much more tolerant. You're much more sort of plugged in every way. And it just requires that you, in addition to everything else you're doing in your own lives, see the value and importance of political involvement. So that, as Secretary Buttigieg said, there are elections all the time in most of your countries, not all of them, where you have real choices. And using your ability to connect in real life and online, organizing around issues that are important to you and your peers, I just cannot emphasize enough. You can help us overcome the divisiveness by, frankly, electing people who don't traffic in division, who don't traffic in disinformation, who really want to be in public service for the right reasons. But I want to ask Chelsea to chime in on this.
Well, thank you for your question. I would only add to my mother's response that I think we have to be mindful of both being kind of open to even really hard conversations about issues where there are very fact-based and informed different opinions. We also, though, have to kind of never give purchase or standing or permission to bigotry. And I think that is one of the real challenges at the moment, is that we have to be able to, as Secretary Buttigieg and my mom were talking about last night, listen to and learn from people who have different, very strongly held opinions with kind of deep kind of evidence marshaled behind them for the best way to completely move to a green energy system and a green economy in this country. And we also have to ensure that we're never kind of granting standing in public discourse, that we are kind of always pushing back and against the people that so many of the panelists on my kind of conversation were talking about, the people who had been kind of demeaning and degrading to Sekhmet for his Sikh heritage, the people who had told Georgina that ballet dancers don't look like her, the people who had told Jordan that she was limited by her disability, the people who harassed Olivia online and off and kind of threatened her and her family and her sister's children with death as a ostensibly acceptable tactic to silence her. So I think we have to be able to navigate being open and vulnerable to the conversations that are very much about how do we move forward as a country. And we also have to stand really clearly against those who want to either trap us in the status quo, which is deeply insufficient, or the people who here, and I apologize to those of you who are not American to have given such an American-centered answer, but right now, we have people who want to take us back to the Jim Crow era in this country. We have people who think that anti-Semitism is a perfectly acceptable kind of set of beliefs to not only hold and articulate, but to double down on online and off. We have people who think that being openly armed is not a chilling effect or a signal of danger in public debate and discourse. So we know our challenges acutely here are often ones that are not limited to our own borders. So I think we also have to continue to find, as my mom said, global kind of community of shared purpose and promise about how we are going to solve our problems together, but also stand against and stand up to those who actually just want to cause more problems for more people in increasingly dangerous ways.
The only thing I'd like to add is I think in all your advocacy, you sort of need an opening which gives people permission to listen to you. I mean, we hear all this stuff and we assume that 100% of the people are locked into one position or the other. And the truth is, the country is more polarized than it has been, partly because of social media and partly because of the disappearance of small-town newspapers and independently owned radio stations. But the strategy of division through identity politics is very old. And it's been in full bloom in one form or the other in this part of the country ever since the South was freed of Union soldiers after Reconstruction and what was called the corrupt bargain of 1876. And I think you got to find a way to, to have an opening. I mean, when I first ran for Congress in 1974, people looked at me like I'd lost my mind because my congressman had an 85% approval rating and 95%, 99% name recognition, and I was 0-0. And I just drove around in this Camaro pickup and talked to people. And I listened to them, and finally I realized that if people think you're on the level and that you also care about them, you got a shot. And you're going to have to be prepared for a very long slog if you're an American and in many other countries too. Because people who are in power and want to stay in power love identity politics. And it used to be basically racial, and it still is where it works. And then there was a lot of prejudice against gay people, but now 70% of the people approve of gay marriage. So they keep looking for, that's how this whole transgender thing came up, because there aren't many people who are transgender, and there aren't many people who are dealing with it, although if you know them, you feel it deeply. So what you need is to find a way to talk to people who are just out there confused by what's going on, and generally are decent people who want to do the right thing and don't think of themselves as racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever, but they're uncertain. And if you spend enough time on social media, you'll be uncertain and miserable too, depending on what you're looking at. So that's my advice. My advice is, I always start with this, that I think our differences are profoundly important, but our common humanity matters more, that what we have in common matters more, and we have to find what we can do together. Before Mr. Netanyahu narrowly won another term in Israel, there was an amazing government that I often didn't agree with in Israel, headed by Naftali Bennett, who was a hardcore right-winger, but a decent person, and he had to have a coalition because it was a multi-party parliamentary system, and the head of the Muslim party was in his coalition. And he wrote a fascinating article after he left office saying, you know, I thought this guy was a terrorist because I didn't know him. I never listened to him. And he thought I was an imperialist colonist because I didn't want to give up the West Bank. And we finally realized, our whole broad coalition, that we agreed on 70% of the things, and we would be a government first of the 70%. We would do the things that we agreed on, deliver them, that would hold us together, then we would air our disagreements. And it worked until, but the extreme people, mostly on the right, just kept chipping away till they peeled off 2 members on the right and 1 on the left, and they lost their majority. And what did they trade it for? Identity politics. So you really have to think through how you're going to do this, because you're entitled to your identity and what you believe. But if you want to win in politics, you have to find a way to reach people who see the world differently, but at the core are fundamentally decent and don't want what we've produced that is paralyzing much of the world today.
Thank you all. All right, we're going to have our next question, and we're going to have Ben and Ray come ask their question.
Sorry. Hello, I'm Ben. I attend Vanderbilt University, and I'm originally from Michigan.
I'm Raymond Malcolm, and I'm from Texas, and I go to Vanderbilt University.
How do you think the government can better support and empower individuals with mental illness and disabilities to live fulfilling and productive lives, both in terms of policy and societal attitudes?
Well, we'll try to have our answers be shorter so we can get to everybody, but these are such important questions. I think there are so many things we should be doing when it comes to mental illness and mental health. We have never fulfilled the objective after many of the institutions that were not providing the kind of care that people needed were closed en masse. The alternative was expected to be more services at the community-based level, more accessibility on an affordable basis to mental health professionals, more supported living where appropriate, and we just never met that challenge. So the first thing is we should be meeting the challenge that has been literally talked about for more than 40 years. Secondly, there has to be a concerted effort to make sure that every person who is facing mental health challenges has the access to care that that person needs, which means every insurance policy, every government program has to support mental health the way that we hope it supports physical health. And we know that's not happening, and we know that the restrictions often put on mental health treatment are endangering people's mental health, even their physical well-being. And we need more practicing professionals in order to realize that goal. Thirdly, we have to do much more to eliminate the stigma about mental health. And it should be long gone, but sadly it isn't. And there should be no question that health is mind and body. It's not one or the other. It is everything. If you're talking about wellness, if you're talking about health, if you're talking about meeting challenges that you or people in your community have. And so more people need to be speaking out about that. And then finally, I think that we need to do more to understand what's happening today, because there has been a marked increase in reported depression and anxiety and related conditions that people are suffering, particularly young people. Some of that may well be COVID-related, coming out of that period. Some of it seems to be social media-related and how it exacerbates vulnerabilities and makes people more susceptible. But whatever the reasons are, we need to do a better job in trying to prevent the kind of experiences and stimulation that can trigger mental health. So from treatment to ending the stigma to trying to find ways that will, if not prevent, ameliorate the most common mental health problems, we have a lot of work to do.
And I would just say, not only in this country, but around the world, given we know how many young people, including children at the elementary school level, are presenting with depression and anxiety and other significantly challenging mental health kind of diagnoses and illnesses. We need to do a better job of meeting kids where they are in schools. You know, we have lost, you know, in the United States, but really in so much of the world, the school nursing function or the school social worker function. We need to be not only, you know, training more, you know, psychologists and psychiatrists and kind of, you know, nurse practitioners who have kind of these specialties and, you know, trained social workers, and to be deploying them in clinical settings. We also need to be helping those people kind of find positions or relationships with schools and with students so that we can have earlier diagnoses and earlier support, because we know how much that early diagnosis and that early treatment and support can change the trajectory of someone's life. I mean, we now have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds here in the United States, and I know the data is similar across the world, who are suffering from serious depression. And we need to do a better job of supporting students your age and also students who are much younger, so that everyone has the chance to lead a healthy, thriving life.
Absolutely.
This is a big deal. A lot of it is we're living in a time of where all the absolutes seem to be blurred, and all the blurry people seem to want to talk in absolutes. And we keep opening ourselves to a lot of things that are bound to have a negative impact on our self-image and the meaning of each new day. So I also strongly believe a big component of this has to be empowering people, making people believe that they can make a difference in their own lives and other lives, and that, by God, every day is worth living. And you can learn something every day, and you have to keep fighting every day. And it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be worth it. And I think that it depends on, we really have to go. I feel so badly that when I read that story that a third of teenage girls have seriously considered suicide. And it's hard out there. I saw how much harder it was even for Chelsea to be a child than it was for Hillary and me when we were her age. And it's just gotten worse. And I think we need to start putting the children, the young people first, and the children, and making them feel that they matter and that life is worth living. And you can't let setbacks crush you. And I really think we got to, families and communities and schools, we all have to think about how much time younger people are spending basically just being devoured by things that are bound to increase their insecurity, their sense of uprootedness, their sense of helplessness and hopelessness. And who wants to be a mother or a father or a grandparent or, you know, live a life doing a boring job or whatever, so check out, give up. I think there has to be a positive component of this too, and it needs to be very, very strong. I'm appalled by the ratio of hours that so many of our young people will spend injecting things that are going to make them give up instead of feel like, wow, this is a big-ass problem. I think I'll take it on. You know, I mean, that's a different deal, but it just depends on, it's all about how you look at it.
Absolutely. We know the mental health crisis is real, and social media absolutely exacerbates some of the things we're seeing here. I'm going to pass the next question to Adeshola.
Good morning. My name is Adeshola Adeniji. I'm from Nigeria, studying at St. Cloud State University. My question is, as aspiring change makers, what should be the 2023 court's strongest motivation to actualizing our commitment to action? Thank you.
Well, I think there are as many answers to that question as there are people here.
That's right.
So I certainly, would not be presumptuous and tell kind of anyone, Abishola, you or anyone here, kind of what you should kind of care most about or focus most on. I do think, though, certainly having had a ringside seat to my parents' lives, at least for as long as I've been here, and to build off of, I think, what kind of my mom really spoke about last night and what my dad spoke about just now, is it has been incredibly inspiring to see my parents treat both successes and setbacks as just new challenges to figure out how to do more and to do better. That every success hasn't been permission to do less, it's been kind of fuel to do more. And every setback hasn't been permission to draw the proverbial or actual covers over your head. It's been kind of the expectation to think about how to do better and to do different, so that you can be more effective. What my father didn't say in one of his earlier answers is he lost that race for Congress in 1974, and if he had given up, like, none of us would have been sitting here together today. So I'm very glad that he didn't give up. And I also know that for all of the various personal challenges that the three of us have had, we also, though, have never struggled with serious depression or anxiety or mental illness or mental health. And so I don't want to in any way intimate that the resilience that I think we have somewhat inherited and somewhat learned, and thankfully somewhat supported each other in being able to continue to kind of find and grow, is as easy for everyone as it has been for us, and it's also been really sometimes really fucking hard for us. So I don't want to gloss over that, but I also don't want to in any way have the leave the impression that this is even really, really hard and yet doable for everyone. But I do think there is something to how does every success and setback just hopefully create kind of more opportunity to do more, to be more effective, to be more impactful, and hopefully to find joy even in the struggle.
Well, I would only add to that it's very hard sometimes to figure out what path you want to take in life, especially when you're young. I mean, the good news today is there are a lot of different paths that you can take, and there are paths that you can take and then take another path and then take a detour. There's just so much more opportunity and acceptability to finding whatever it is that you want to pursue. But I do think it's important to kind of match your passion and your purpose with your education and your skills. As I was listening to Jordan talk about her ballet experience,
Regina.
What?
Yeah, she was doing ballet when no one told her she could.
Yeah, when she was doing ballet, no one told her she could. That was determination, and it was matching her passion and her purpose and her skills, but at some point, it just got to be too much, and so she took a different direction. And I do think that part of the challenge right now in being young and making those decisions is you're bombarded by so much stimuli all the time. The information ecosystem is nonstop, and we're all addicted to it. There's no other way of saying it. The algorithms are designed to addict us, and we've become captive to them. So you've got to find enough time and space to really get to know yourself and what your passion is, what your purpose is, what skills and education you need to try to pursue those, and be kind to yourself. Don't overwhelm yourself with expectations that can't be met. Like, I could never be a ballet dancer, even if I was passionate for it. And, years ago, when Bill started out in politics, I was interviewed one time by a radio announcer in a radio station, I think in Connecticut, and he had a little resume that he was reading off of, and he goes, "Oh, it says here you were a champion diver." I said, "No, I wasn't." "Oh, but it says right here you were a champion diver." I said, "I know, but I wasn't." So I'm having an argument with this total stranger about my own life. And I would have loved to have said, yeah, I was a champion diver, or I would have liked to have been. But my point really is, you have to make those decisions for yourself. And part of what CGI U is about is to expose you to different people, different perspectives, different experiences that can maybe help you make those decisions.
That's right. Well, and I would just say, too, we all care about a lot of different things, but we can't all work on all of those things, at least not at the same time. And so, for me, I spend my time and energy very much in areas that mean a lot to me and where I hope to make even a slight positive difference in kind of public health and relating to the kind of empowerment and the protection, the amplification, the support of women and girls here in the US and around the world. I care a lot about climate change. I'm so grateful to have friends who are working as innovators and investors and on the policy side and in politics to try to help ensure the planet is here forever. I vote on those issues. I donate time and energy, money to those issues, but that's not where I spend my professional time. And so I would just also urge you to not feel guilty if you can't engage on every issue that feels important to you in the same way simultaneously. You can find other ways to engage over time and other ways to engage simultaneously, but with different levels of kind of intensity and time, but not without still having real kind of passion and the sense that this is really important.
Absolutely. And so we've talked about mental health a little bit. We talked about how do we bridge the divide. And we're actually going to wrap up with one more question from Subin.
Hello, my name is Subin Roh. I'm from South Korea, and I attend Augustana University. If you can teach only one thing, if you can teach only one thing to the grandchildren of your grandchildren, what would it be?
I would hope to be able to teach resilience in the face of what life deals you. Because, as Chelsea was saying, each of us and everyone here in this auditorium, we've had successes, we've had setbacks. You can't let either overwhelm you or discourage you. You've got to figure out ways that are personally useful to get up and keep going. And there's a lot of things that we now know about that. Obviously, being healthy, taking care of yourself, finding things that give you joy, finding a circle of friends that you can be yourself with, you can trust. But it would be that sense of resilience and continued effort to make the most out of your own life.
If I could only teach one thing, I would teach people the lesson that Nelson Mandela taught me. We served at the same time. We became close friends. We worked together until he died. And I asked him one day, I said, I got Chelsea up early in the morning when they let you out of prison for the last time, and we watched you on television walk out of that place and get in the car and drive on to freedom. I said, but tell me the truth. Didn't you really hate people who did all that to you? He said, yeah, I did for a while, but he said, I realized finally that they could take everything from me. They beat me up. They kept me from seeing my children growing up. It destroyed my marriage. It did everything. They could take everything. except my mind and my heart. He said, those things I would have to give away. I decided not to give them away. And he looked at me and smiled. He said, neither should you. So I say that to you. Remember, anytime you give in to an external pressure that has negative consequences, you're basically saying, here's a piece of my mind, here's a piece of my heart. Go ahead and take it and do whatever you want, and I'll be a victim. Mandela was the greatest non-victim I ever knew because he didn't give away his mind or his heart. And I would like to teach everybody not to do that. He had a huge influence on Chelsea when she was a little girl. He would call me on the phone and we would talk business, but first he would say, is Chelsea still awake? And I said, yes, she's doing her homework. He said, go get her. And I would go get her, and Chelsea would sit there on the phone, talk to Mandela down in South Africa, and he would make sure she was doing her homework and ask her if that. It was hilarious, but it was not an act for him. He did that to people he didn't know. He wanted people to seize their lives and to believe their mind and their heart mattered if they didn't give them away. And if you think about it, everything you have the power to stop and don't requires you to give something away. Don't do it. I think that will maximize the chances that people will live as long and as well as they can.
Oh, goodness. Admittedly, I was thinking while my dad was mimicking me talking to Mandela, we did used to have phones that were larger than our hands. I know that may seem like ancient history to some of you. I was thinking, admittedly, when the question was asked, really about children, about kids that are much younger than you, maybe because those are the little people that I am so blessed to parent. I have an 8, 6, and 3-year-old. And I hope certainly to be able to live long enough to see my grandchildren. It's been a real, unexpectedly enormous gift to see my parents become grandparents to my children. And I hope that maybe I'll even be lucky enough to live long enough to see my great-grandchildren. But I don't think, even with my pretty deep well of persistence and wherever kind of modern science and medicine may take us, I will be around to see my great-great-grandchildren. But if I were, if I am, I strongly suspect that I'll be teaching them the same values that I am actively teaching my children now, which is to be brave and to be kind. I, of course, hope that they're curious about the world and they're hardworking. I hope many things for them. I fundamentally believe, though, that if they are brave and they are kind, they will be good people. They will grow to be kind of worthy of being in this audience, kind of when they're in university. Because if they are brave and kind for themselves and for others, I think they will be part of creating lives for themselves and building community that is affirmative and positive and inclusive and is not kind of divisive or degrading. They will not be bystanders, they will be upstanders. And if I am able to do that, I will feel like that has been a life well lived. And I hope that I will be able to have kind of those moments of communion and community building with my children throughout their, God willing, very long lives, and with my grandchildren, with my great-grandchildren, and, who knows, maybe with my great-great-grandchildren as well.
Thank you. And so, as you all clearly know, we have folks that don't just talk the talk on stage with us, but they walk the walk. We know the famous quote, be the change. It's interesting to read about somebody and see about somebody who's doing the work, but you have legends on stage who are showing you what it means to actually be a change maker. Change is hard. You all are advocates and people who are making change. Please know it's always going to be a tough road. But at the end of the day, you're creating something that's new, something that's possible. You're creating a reality where we're crossing lines. We're creating a reality where we're advocating for folks who have mental health and disabilities to get the things they need. We're making sure that girls and women are actually on the stage the way we're supposed to be. So I want to thank you all, and I would love for you all to stand up and thank them for their time.
And Ragina, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Ragina.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. Awesome. And we're going to head off stage, and they're going to get them all set.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone.
In picture, so don't move.
Not at all.
They have to come out and
Hang
get it
tight.
organized. Thank you.
This concludes our morning session. If you are wearing a credential, we ask that you please remain seated for a group photo. Thank you. If you are wearing a credential, we ask that you please remain seated for a group photo. Thank you.